All right, Krug Show on a Monday. Hope everybody had a phenomenal weekend. Larry Krueger with you on this Monday as we get rolling at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show, brought to you by our good friends at Pig and Pickle. Damon and Mary have a phenomenal restaurant. It's in Corte Madera. It's actually two locations, in Corte Madera at 341 Corte Madera Town Center. They're also in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in the Bay Area. And we'll have more on them in a bit. But first, we welcome Raj from our SF 49ers back with us as we do on Monday. Raj, good to see you again. How was your weekend?
Yeah, good to see you too, Larry. It's always good to be here on Monday. Weekend was good. It's the off season, no football. You try to keep yourself busy. I was in San Francisco this weekend. Went to the city, enjoyed. Pretend I was a tourist out there. Went to the beach, all that good stuff. Saw the bridge, Golden Gate Bridge. So enjoyed the weekend. Tried to keep myself busy. The first Sunday without the NFL is kind of sad, but I'm good.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
So you weren't into the USFL?
I caught a little bit. I a little bit when I had a chance. I saw some. I recorded a game. I watched it. It was actually, or the XFL. It was better than, I had remembered it a couple years ago. So I saw some of that. Saw some NBA All-Star stuff. When I got home in the evening. There's a little bit of, sports on there, but nothing too crazy. It's just weird without the NFL, honestly. NBA can't compare.
We were talking about secondary football leagues today on 95.7 The Game. I was sitting in for Bonte and Shasky on their morning show on the holiday. And, one of the things that kept coming up is just, how it's just such a difficult time of year for, to talk football and that kind of thing. But we were also talking about secondary football and the leagues. People want to talk football and they're conditioned from training camp to be into football. And now here the NFL ends. And I just think that if secondary football is ever going to work, it's going to work by attaching the brand of the NFL to it. If there are players that are on the Niners practice squad that are playing, I think Niner fans will watch that. I think the appetite for football is so great now that if the 49ers had, I don't know, a team that had their own colors, their own name, and this was like, some, kind of a larger version of the practice squad than exists right now, I think Niner fans would buy it. But if you don't have that connection, secondary football just doesn't work. It doesn't work in NFL Europe, doesn't work in Canadian football, American expansion, World League, XFL, USFL. None of it works with different markets and trying to rebrand. And there's not enough, loyalty to it. The loyalty's to the NFL brand. So they got to figure out a way, because I think the NFL is badly in need of a secondary league, a true minor league for its officials. Part of the reason that there's so few quarterbacks in the NFL is that there's no place for them to improve. So they're so it's like you basically don't have this developmental league. They need a developmental league. The NFL so popular that I think it's gone beyond the major markets. Like you could put like the 49ers, second team in Sacramento or in a number of spots around the Bay Area, and people would be fine with it. It doesn't have to be major market type entertainment. I'd love to see it. I think it's long overdue. I think if that day comes, we're going to be sitting back going, remember when, everybody tried their hand at a secondary football league and it never worked? It seems so obvious. Why didn't they try to brand it with the NFL and work out a deal with the NFL? And nobody's been able to figure that out. Why is that so hard to understand?
No, I 100% agree, because you can't compete against the NFL. NFL's cash cow. They're the rating. Like, you cannot beat the NFL. You have to join them. And again, I agree with you. Like, it's like the NBA. They have the G League. They get these players. They can kind of work their way up and into the league. If the 49ers or if any team had players that were affiliates of like the XFL, and it's a developmental league, and then they get, onto someone's practice squad or something, I think that would make fans like really more intrigued. Because again, it's just a standalone league. And right now, some people are NFL'd out. They're okay, the NFL's over, the Super Bowl's over, I'm done. We'll wait till, it resurfaces again. And then the hardcore fans, I feel like they just don't really see the link. They're like, this is not the NFL product. But if there are ties to the players getting into the league, I 100% agree that it would make things a lot more fun, because then you're going to be like, oh, man, this is a team that these guys could be on the 49ers. Like, I remember watching, I used to live in Vegas. We had a lot of minor league teams, baseball teams and stuff, until they got major leagues. And it was fun because a lot of those players would end up going to major league teams. They were, I think they had the Dodgers at one point where they were a minor league farm club for Dodgers. And it was cool because then you'd see them in the major leagues a couple of years later or something. So gives you a little bit more incentive to watch the league. But right now, I mean, it was fun because there's nothing to watch. But if they can't get that attachment, I think they're not going to be able to get the engagement, and they're not going to be able to get the fans in the seats. Because ultimately, if you can't sell out these arenas and have the fans there, it's going to be a sinking business, and you're not going to make any money. So I agree with you on that, Larry. They need to somehow figure out a way to get the NFL involved, because then it's just a continuation of the NFL. It's like their farm league, it's minor league. Okay, boom, these guys are going into the supplemental draft maybe, or they might go and get drafted from the developmental league. So let's hopefully it evolves into that.
We're talking with Raj from RSF 49ers on the Pig and a Pickle Krug show. Rob D says, Kyle on vacation in Cabo with the players is like your mom showing up on your honeymoon. We did see images, and if you follow Raj on Instagram at RSF 49ers, like I'm touting it for you to my relatively small audience, to the 250,000 people that are following Raj. But Raj, tell us about, where did that come from? Who put that out on their Instagram?
So actually, they're the players, of course, they always show their stories on their Instagram pages. Deebo was there; he was posting a lot. His girl, he posted a picture with her, and she ended up posting a video on her Instagram story, and then it kind of just went from there. And in the background, you can see Kyle Shanahan, and then Trent Williams posted a picture, I think, with George Kittle posted a picture with Trent Williams. And, you just kind of looking at everybody's pages, and they all tag each other. And that's kind of what it was. It was this weekend, all a select group of the players, probably their star players, were in Cabo celebrating and, enjoying vacation after the long grind of a season. And sometimes Kyle is known to be there. And it's funny that he turned up in one of the videos that, people were posting out there. So you never know, last year, Kyle talked about how he was in Cabo, and he goes, I think, yearly. The year when Matt Stafford joined the Rams, I remember there was the whole situation of Kyle was in Cabo, and and McVay was trying to get him. So that's Kyle's vacation. And apparently, it looks like the players said, you know what, this year let's do Cabo, and all of them were posting about it. So it was interesting to see that, yeah.
And it was, as far as the activities in Cabo, right? There's water activities, but then they also go up in the dune buggies, huh?
Yeah.
That looked like fun.
That's what Deebo was posted. He posted that he was going on the dune buggies and stuff, and he's like, this is so scary, the scariest thing I did in my life. And it's just fun to see him. And usually, you don't really see Deebo out there with some of the other players, because I feel like there's like a tight-knit group amongst this locker room. They're like a family, right? But now it's cool to see Deebo out there, because I've never, I've seen other players like Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle. I see them all the time together, and on group pictures and family, or like, what's the word I'm looking for like vacation photos, because I think their girlfriends are friendly, so they kind of keep it together. But now you see Christian McCaffrey in the mix with him and his girl there, and then you see Deebo and his girl. So it's like, they're just like, hey, if you got a girl and you're on the team, let's just continue to make this a thing, So all the players are bonding, and I think that's good for the team, because it is a tight-knit group. And this is, again, like their core group of players, and it's cool to see them enjoying themselves. It was a long season, They needed some time to wind down, because next month they'll probably be back to getting their training on and stuff. So
you wonder if how much football gets talked on that boat, on that trip. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, it's like, you got your boss there. You just went through a big season. You fell short of the goal. I think it's almost human nature for it to come up on some level, right?
Yeah, 100%. I'm sure they talked game. I'm sure they all bonded and said, "Man, that could have been us in the Super Bowl." I'm sure it came up. They're players. They're all teammates. They all play on the same team. And with Kyle there, it's got to be interesting to know what they were talking about and say, "Hey, look, Kyle, let's next year, let's integrate these plays. Maybe they were talking about playbook. I mean, I'm sure it was brought up. I would have loved to have been a fly on the yacht at the time when they were there. So that's where I wish I was. I wish I was a pool boy on the yacht or something like that, just to know what they were talking about.
Raj, we need some mics, man. Can you plant some mics on some of this stuff? I mean,
I wish I could. I would
we,
definitely.
we need to find out what they're talking about on the
We need
boat
to.
in Cabo. You ever been to Cabo?
You know what? I haven't actually. I need to go. I want to go to Cabo badly. I was talking to some of my friends this weekend, and I said, you know what? Next year, let's plan a trip to Cabo in February, whether the Niners win the Super Bowl or not. Because if they're there next year, then definitely I could plant some mics on the area.
Well,
so.
supposedly they say, be careful in the water because the Undertow. I hear the Undertow in Cabo is crazy.
Whew.
Crazy, like really, really, really treacherous. We got this one from Lotta Low That Truth 05. Larry, you killed it on 95.7 The Game this morning with Alan Stiles. Thank you. Appreciate that. We got this one from Permaculture. He says 14,300 subs for the Krug Show. Keep on trucking. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to everybody. MF says, love the shows with Raj. I do too. I was just saying to one of our guys that I love Mondays with Raj. I mean, we've been doing it the last few Mondays, and Raj has got a great vibe. Jay Mill, though, has caught my attention with this one. Bring back the Sacramento Gold Miners. That helmet right above my head over there is the Sacramento Gold Miner helmet.
Oh, I see. I like it.
There you go.
Yeah, no.
MF says, I used to be a big LA Avengers fan. Okay. I remember Al Lucas, the late Al Lucas was on that team, LA Avengers.
Yeah. In San Jose, actually, we actually have a indoor football team now. So they used to be the SaberCats, San Jose SaberCats.
Right.
But they actually are now, they transformed, they changed their team. They went through a rebranding. They're now the Bay Area Panthers. I don't know if you've heard about them, but they play at the SAP Center. Actually, I'm going to be working for them this year. So I'm going to see how it is. Yeah, I'm going to do some social media stuff for them and kind of do some media work. And they gave me some media passes. So it's going to be my first foray into that mix. So we'll see how it is. But it's like an indoor football team. I never really watched the SaberCats, but we're going to see how it goes. But it's the Bay Area
50-yard indoor war is what they used to call it.
Yeah. We'll see.
All right, let's get to some Niner topics du jour. And there's not a ton, but there's a few we want to throw out. One is there's a lot of speculation as to where Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be next. Where do you think? If I say to you Jimmy Garoppolo's next home, what makes the most sense to you?
So I feel like there's a short list of teams, and I actually was thinking about this the other day because I was talking to another buddy, and I said, where the heck's Jimmy going? And I honestly think top of that list is probably Tampa Bay. They got a decent amount of money to spend. Tom Brady's gone. They got Blaine Gabbert and I think Kyle Trask. I don't think any of those two guys are really suited enough to take them into a playoff run. It's the NFC South. It's still a very wide open. They won with 8 wins last year. I still think they could be a competitive team, get their players healthy. They got Mike Evans and Godwin. I think that Jimmy makes sense there if they're just trying to get a veteran. I don't know what their draft pick is off the top of my head. I think Jimmy could be there, replace Tom Brady. He knows the system if they keep that same type of system intact, So I think Tampa Bay's probably a pretty realistic landing spot. Other than that, I got the Raiders. He has ties to their coach from New England days. I think that he would be a fit in there, but it depends on if Aaron Rodgers is going to go down to Vegas, right? Because there's a lot of speculation when he does his little darkness retreat that he'll figure out where he's going. And Raiders are one of the teams. And then you got to think about teams that have direct ties to Jimmy Garoppolo. You got Robert Saleh with the Jets. I think they would be a viable option. I mean, Zach Wilson looks like he's going to be a big bust. So maybe they get a quarterback like Jimmy to be a veteran until they figure out what they're going to do at that position. Or maybe say, hey, Jimmy, you can kind of mentor Zach, see if he has one last chance in him. And then the same thing with Houston. You got DeMeco Ryans, who's there now, and he has connection with Jimmy. They'll probably take a quarterback with the number 2 pick. But Jimmy's done the mentor thing before with Trey Lance. So I think DeMeco would say, hey, look, I need you to do what you did for Kyle with me. I'll give you a lot of money for 2-3 years and be the bridge for whoever we draft. So I think those are the top teams in my book, but there's so many teams that need a quarterback this offseason. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if any of the other ones look into them. But to me, those are the 4 top choices. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think he's going to Tampa. I think he's
Okay.
going to Tampa. Why? Because I think that team is ready to win. I mean, you've got Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Mike Evans, Russell Gage. You've got some weapons. They got a couple tight ends there, got a couple backs. They really have a ready-made offense, just with a nice tackle and Tristan Wirfs.
Yeah.
So I just think that makes sense. Now I think the Raiders will want him as well, but I think when Jimmy looks at his options, I think he would rather be there with Tampa Bay than go to the Raiders. I think Tampa Bay in the NFC, in a wide open division, as opposed to you're going to jump into a division with Sean Payton and Mahomes and Herbert, and you're going to try to outdo all those guys. I mean, I know there's the New England connection, but I was thinking that would make sense. But I think Jimmy winds up in Tampa. I really do. I think he'll look around and say, "Hey, you know what? I might be able to win in Tampa. I don't mind living in Tampa." And I think the real key is look at Tampa's receivers. I mean, you got Chris
Mhm.
Godwin, Mike Evans. I mean, if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I think that's. I mean, Devontae Adams is a hell of a player too. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but I just think Tampa makes a lot of sense.
No,
You know?
honestly, that's why I think I have them as the top of my list. I think they make the most sense because you're right. Like you said, they're ready to win compared to the other teams. Now I know the Raiders have a good team, but competing against the NFC South, against the AFC West, if I'm Jimmy, I'm taking the NFC South all day. Give me my money and let me go try to win this division. So, and again, this is probably gonna be his last time to really cash in on a type of a contract. Was he 31, 32? So I think he's gonna maximize his potential here. And yeah, I think Tampa Bay is gonna be the ultimate destination. But I mean, it's going to get interesting. He'll get offers out there. He's a solid veteran guy, and teams are going to want a guy like him. Again, there's a lot of teams that want a quarterback this year.
No doubt. And to the point of the demand far outweighs the supply. And
Yeah.
so I think the 49er discussion on Trey Lance has to be okay. You got Purdy and he's hurt, and you got Trey Lance sitting there. Do you stay with both guys, or what happens if the phone rings and somebody's calling about Trey Lance or Brock Purdy? Do you hang up the phone or do you listen? And
I
then
mean,
if you listen, what are you listening for? What's your price? What would make you, they both have a good future as far as I'm concerned. What would make you part with one of those guys? Because I don't think there's 30 starting quarterbacks better than either Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. So I think the 49ers very easily could get calls from other teams wanting to trade for them. What would it take for you to part with Trey Lance or Brock Purdy?
yeah, no, 100% teams are going to call. And I'm sure they're going to listen because the 49ers always do their due diligence, and it'd be silly not to. But so you have to at least understand what the offers are, because if another team calls and you can say, hey, look, this team's offering XYZ, your deal's nothing, maybe. But at the end of the day, you have to see where Brock Purdy is in terms of his recovery, because he's going to have a surgery on the 22nd. We know it is. And then we'll kind of know, okay, is Brock going to be even back for the season? Is he going to miss time? Depending on what really happens with that surgery. Because again, like they've said, they won't really know 100% until they have to go in there and operate. So that's going to really dictate a lot of stuff. And if Brock is, not ready for the start of the season, then they got to go with Trey, because you don't want to trade him and then start all over again. So I think ultimately they'll hold on to two quarterbacks, Brock and Trey. I think we mentioned that last week, and I think it's good for them. But if I do run down that hole and say, okay, we're going to trade Trey Lance or Brock for that matter, it's got to be really worth my while because you have two quarterbacks. So you're not necessarily trying to get a quarterback unless Brock is not going to be able to play. So then I'm looking at what are my holes on my team. There's definitely offensive line. So if you can get a premium offensive lineman, edge rusher, we talked about that, like one of the key edge, like Brian Burns, obviously he's a free agent, but if he was a player that was available for a trade, then I'd go and get a guy like that or somebody that can really help this team and make an impact and win right now. A quality star on defense or a quality star on the offensive line. I feel like those two positions, if you can get I don't know, who's maybe like an Orlando Brown type guy, if he was available for trade. So something like that on that line, because again, 49ers are going into this offseason with Mike McGlinchey as a free agent. They don't know what's going to happen with right tackle. They don't have a center. They don't have, a defensive lineman also, interior D-line. Is there a premium interior D-line that you can get for a guy? So that would be the only thing. I don't care about the first-round picks because sometimes those don't pan out. And the 49ers do their best work in the middle to late rounds. So I feel like the Niners would have to get like a star quality player in return for Trey or Brock Purdy. So that's the way I look at it.
I agree. I mean, you first of all, you're not moving these guys if you're not getting a premium price tag. It's the laws of supply and demand. There's more demand than there is supply, and you have two of them. So you're in a really, really good spot. Also, you look at the free agent market, and I heard Adam Kaplan doing an interview this week, and he's like, "Hey, man, if you don't have a quarterback right now, you're in a rough spot. There's not a lot of good quarterbacks out there. I mean, the free agent market quarterbacks, Derek Carr, they say he's probably going to the Jets if Rodgers doesn't go there. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Jimmy Garoppolo, Teddy Bridgewater, Daniel Jones, they say he's going back to New York. Geno Smith's likely going back to Seattle. You got Andy Dalton, Taylor Heineke. My guess is he goes back to Washington. I think Lamar probably stays in Baltimore if you believe John Harbaugh.
Yeah.
So what's left? You got nothing. Jarrett Stidham might be one of the better quarterbacks out there. And then in the draft, if you have a top 10 pick, you can get somebody in the draft. But look at how many teams need quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's an awful lot of teams. I'm just saying the supply does not fit the demand. And I would not be surprised if the 49ers get a really attractive offer for either of their two quarterbacks. Now, Greg Cosell weighed in this week on Trey Lance. And this is kind of interesting, I think. This is the quote on Trey Lance. He says, "I would struggle to give a true evaluation of him based on the amount that he's played. I guess the question I would have about Trey Lance, and this is based on a gut reaction based on what the film shows, because I don't know that there's enough film. But the question I would have is, I'm anxious to see if he sees it quickly enough. There are coaches that think you can coach that. And there are other coaches that will tell you, hey, if a guy doesn't see it real well, that just may be the way he is. Every pass play has a route progression, a concept with a progression based on an anticipated defense. There's a difference between predetermination and anticipation. That's just a question I have about Lance. Again, not that I've seen that he's been bad at it, but I'm very curious to see him do that as he progresses." So it sounds like Cosell at least is, I don't want to say skeptical, but it has not been proven to him yet that Trey doesn't play in this predetermined way and that he can actually see it and make anticipatory throws, which is next level quarterbacking. And that's a real evaluation. I think it's an interesting evaluation, but I also think it's one that kind of clouds the picture with Trey Lance. What exactly is he? Is he ever going to be able to, be a guy who throws with anticipation, or, is everything have to be kind of predetermined and he's going to have great highlights, but huge negative plays as well. I thought it was an interesting evaluation by Cosell.
No, he knows ball. Like I've seen a lot of his assessments, and he runs the tape. He knows it. He's been in the game for a long time. So, I mean, you have to take what he says with you have to really take it at face value, because he does know a lot. So, and I think that's what a lot of people are trying to say about Trey. I think a lot of people would share that sentiment, because there is an unknown, and that's what, like, Trey Lance is an unknown commodity. We don't know what we have. Like, we've seen the big, pretty highlights. You've seen, the college film when he was in North Dakota that year, and it was like, oh, wow. When he's at the top of his game, when everything's working right, like, yeah, it looks pretty, but we haven't seen it at the next level really enough. So there's a lot of question marks, and he's like another prospect right now, because unfortunately for him in 3 seasons, he really hasn't played much. And even before that, he didn't play a lot of football. I think there was some crazy stat that Tom Brady this year has thrown this last season at Tom Brady, he had more pass attempts than Trey Lance in the last 3 years or so. So that's crazy to me. That one season Tom Brady has all these attempts in his last year at 45 than Trey Lance has had. He's 22 years old in the last 3-4 years. So there really is a lot of unknown out of Trey. And I don't think that's a bad take from Cassell. I think he hit it on the head. We don't know. We don't know because he hasn't played. But at the same time, I think he deserves his opportunity. But then if he falls on his face, it was an L. So again, if there is a trade potential, then maybe they're going to be like, I don't know. We don't know if we got anything out of him. And if the deal is sweet enough, maybe they pull the trigger because I think this front office is sitting there and they really want to win a Super Bowl. They've been so close. What's going to get them over the hump? But the problem has been quarterback. So then it ultimately, like I said, goes back to Brock Purdy. Will he be healthy enough? And if they're not getting a quarterback that could come in and write this system and take them to the Super Bowl, then it makes no sense to me.
It seems like, Shanahan obviously knows more about these players than we do because he sees them in practice. He sees them in meetings. He hears their questions. He knows how well and how quickly or slowly they're grasping his offense and if they're progressing at the rate that he expects them to progress at. So he knows better than we do about these quarterbacks. But I wonder, if he really knows, if what kind of player Trey is going to be, because I'll say this, Trey's value won't stay the same. It will either go up because he plays well, or it will go down because he plays poorly. So, if you think that he can't play, you might want to trade him. If you think that he can play and he's going to build up his trade value, it would be stupid right now to trade him. So, it's going to be an interesting offseason for sure. Special thanks, by the way, to the sponsor of today's show, New York Style Italian Sausage. Phenomenal product, guys. Check it out. Whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the chorizo, you can't go wrong. New York Style Italian Sausage, often imitated, never equaled. They're a proud sponsor of today's show. Make sure you check them out at NewYorkStyleSausage.com. All right. Glass City says, here's a donation. I wish I could be in the room when Kyle breaks down film just to experience it. Do you think there will be a drop-off in the defense in 2023 with Steve Wilks? If so, is it concerning? Love the show, Krug. I think it's a lot about what they do defensively to fill their holes. Is Jimmy Ward coming back? I want him to come back. Can you go after a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and get a big impact guy in your secondary? I'd love to see that. Can you re-sign Emmanuel Mosley? Can you re-sign Azeez Al-Shaair? Is Kinlaw coming back? If not, who's the replacement for him? Do you have a starter opposite Bosa? Is it going to be Ebukam? Is it going to be a Menahue? Can Jordan Willis step into that role? So there's some question marks on the defense. I think if the defense can maintain their talent level, I think Wilkes will get it out of them. But that's a big question too.
Yeah, that's a huge question for this offseason again, because you're going to transition from yet another defensive coordinator. They did it with Salah. Luckily, they had D'Amico, who was waiting in the wings, and he was able to take this defense and make them the number one defense. This was the number one defense, so that's a very legit question. Will they, lose a little steam? You're going from the number one defense. You expect maybe to lose a little luster, especially if they lose some players. And you've named a lot of those players that are free agents. I don't know if we're bringing back Jimmy Ward because Nick Bosa has to get paid. He's the number one priority. Once you pay him, what's going to be left for everybody else? So I think Emmanuel Mosley may be a guy that comes back, but there are coaches out there now that know our players and they know their tendencies, and they may have ties to them, and they're going to have a lot more money for the 49ers to offer possibly. So I can see these guys go to Houston and New York and maybe Miami. Those are teams that are realistically going to have a competition. It's going to be a competition to keep these players. It's not just a given. Although this team is better than those teams, on paper and with what they've done over the last couple of years, that our sell to those players is, hey, you stay with the Niners, we're going to win games. We're going to get a chance to make it to the playoffs. I don't know. Houston rebuilding, New York Jets quarterback issue, and Miami, they also have a quarterback issue now with Tua. So that's what I feel like the 49ers front office can pitch to them and say, hey, look, you can stay with the team that you know and love, your brothers, and have a chance to win the Super Bowl. So I think that's what they have to market, but they were going to lose players no matter what. It's a business. Some players are going to go and chase that money. So who are we bringing back? Who are we replacing with them? Because I think Wilkes is going to be good enough to step in and fill the void for D'Amico because he has a lot of experience. So I'm not worried about the actual coaching. It's the talent, like you said. Can we bring in the right players? Can we keep the right players? And then you got to stay healthy on top of it. And not only defense. So, okay, Bosa is going to get his big contract. There's some players on offense that need to get money. So how are you going to rework everything? So it all depends on the personnel that they're able to bring back this offseason. I think they can still maintain a top 5 defense, but it really depends on who they get in there. We've talked about this a lot. I feel like they need to go get an edge rusher on the opposite side of Bosa. And Kinlaw is a big X factor. We'll talk about him. That's a guy that this is make or break. I don't think they're going to take up his option this year, his 5th-year option. He got till May 1st. I don't think they're going to pick it up. I know there's rumors saying they're probably not. I can't imagine them doing it. And this is basically them saying, hey, look, do or die this season. This is your 4th year with us, Javon. Stay healthy. Come in, compete for a roster spot. But is he going to be an impact player? Probably not this year. He hasn't really played enough. We talked about Trey not having a lot of opportunities. Javon Kinlaw, and not because they haven't given up to him, but he's been hurt, so he hasn't been able to see the field. So he hasn't really been able to develop. So they got to figure out that interior D-line. They have some good depth pieces. Kevin Givens was a guy. He's a free agent. McGill, they brought him in from the practice squad. But those guys are depth pieces. You need another quality guy that they lost a couple, last year, DJ Jones. Can they get an impact guy like that on the interior line next to Armstead? I feel like that was something that they need to really tackle. I would love to get Deron Payne, but obviously you can't sign all the big money free agents. But those are definitely viable questions and things we'll find out in a couple of weeks of free agency.
Yeah, no question. MF says, what's a Kinlaw trade that makes sense? Well, first of all, you say, he was taken 14th overall in the first round. He's got 1 year of contractual control, at a pretty high price tag for how he plays, to be honest. But you're not going to cut him because if you cut him, there's no cap benefit to cut him. So I think he's a trade candidate. I would say like a Mekhi Becton from the Jets makes sense. Why? Because Becton's a big offensive tackle who can play right tackle, who's had knee problems. Mm-hmm. And Kinlaw, obviously Saleh knows Kinlaw and might be able to get more out of him. The Niners trade their defensive tackle with a bum knee to the Jets for their offensive tackle with a bum knee and see how it all shakes out. I'd be interested in a move like that. It might be one of those situations that's a win-win. As far as, and then you got to know who wants him. Who badly wants help on the defensive line, who had a high grade on him coming out. It's like we really don't know, but that one makes sense to me just because Saleh knows Kinlaw. Niners need a right tackle. Becton is a monster right tackle. He would help them in the run game. And you got to gamble a little bit on the knee. Either way, right? Whether you're getting Kinlaw or trading Kinlaw, or whether you're getting Becton or trading Becton, it's like you got to deal with a big-bodied guy with a bum knee. So that's one that makes sense to me. Khalil says, Larry, who's quarterback 3? What do you think, Raj? Who's your ideal third quarterback if Brock and Trey are 1 and 2?
Man, that's such a good question, and I feel like we're going to be sitting here talking about that a lot more in the coming weeks. But I don't think they're going to make a big splash signing. I know some people keep saying Carr. Carr's not coming in to be QB3, let's be honest. I said this before. I feel like it's probably going to be a guy like Jacoby Brissett. I wouldn't mind Gardner Minshew. Those two guys, they've been starters before. They know they can wait their turn. They're okay with holding the clipboard. I feel like those two guys, in my eyes, would be QB3. I wouldn't even be mad or opposed to Teddy Bridgewater. Maybe those 3 guys. I mean,
do you want a veteran or do you want a rookie?
I want a veteran because, and it's not because I don't want a rookie. I think we talked about this before. It would be smart to get a rookie, develop them. But if the 49ers, worst case scenario, which happened this year, they have to get their third quarterback. I feel like if they're pressed to win a game and they're in a situation like the NFC Championship game, I think they'd be better off to win it if they had a veteran come in than a rookie. I think they are going to get a rookie this year so they can develop and make sure they have that insurance policy. But for QB3, and an emergency situation this year, I want to go with the veteran. And I think one of those 3 guys, I wouldn't, and I said this before. I think Nate Sudfeld is definitely coming into at least training camp to compete. I don't know if he makes the final roster again, but I definitely think they'll bring back Nate Sudfeld this year.
Really? You think Sudfeld's
Yeah,
coming back?
100%.
It's interesting. I mean, I could see with Trey and Brock that you would like to have a veteran quarterback there, but I'm just looking at it this way. What good veteran quarterback would even sign here when you're only playing if if two young guys both get hurt? I don't think we can say Andy Dalton, but don't you think Andy Dalton will have better options than just to back up, be the third string in San Francisco?
No, yeah, it definitely makes sense to say. I don't know if a lot of quarterbacks would do that, but given the history of the 49ers, maybe they take that into consideration because they haven't had a season where they haven't had an injury since Kyle Shanahan's. It's just been bad luck. So maybe they can sit there and say, "Hey, I can bide my tongue and wait." But at the same time, this is a Super Bowl caliber team. And maybe you just want to ride the coattails and win a Super Bowl if one of these young quarterbacks can figure it out and take them all the way. So I don't think they'd be opposed to it. Again, if you're relegated to backup anyways, I feel like at that point in your career, you'll take what you can get. And maybe you can come in and if one of those guys struggle in the back of your mind, you're like, I know I can beat them if they're starting to struggle. So I don't know. You never know. A guy like Andy Dalton, I think wouldn't mind sitting and playing second or third fiddle. But I mean, I can see where you're saying like there are going to be better opportunities. Like we talked about earlier, there's going to be Carolina, New Orleans, the Commanders. There's going to be a ton of quarterback needy teams. So until all those teams are filled and they cycle through, I don't think the 49ers are going to be a top destination for guys like that. They're going to be like that second or third or fourth option. But once all those positions are filled and you still got the Andy Daltons in the world that haven't picked up a job, then I think they'll call, hey, Kyle, you remember you called me a couple weeks ago and I could be QB3? I'm going to do it. So I think that's kind of where they're at in that situation.
I might, I mean, I kind of understand the veteran idea because they're so young, but I kind of like the idea of trying to find a day three quarterback who's also young and then just have the cheapest quarterback room in the entire league and pay Bosa and pay Ayuk and, extend some guys and go sign some veteran free agents and bolster your roster. I don't know. I don't know if I want to waste I mean, like, I think the of an Andy Dalton type veteran quarterback, talking about $5 million. $5 million is not a lot compared to what other quarterbacks make, but it is a lot compared to what other players make. And you
No, it
might want to
is.
spend that elsewhere.
I got a little PTSD still from the NFC Championship game. I'm just saying, if they bring in a guy that's not completely ready, and I love the rookie quarterback idea because I think it's smart to have a cheap room, bring in a lot of guys, and basically get yourself a team that's going to be able to march through down to the playoffs. But I'm just having PTSD of that NFC Championship game, and I could, in my mind, picture a scenario, and I hope it doesn't happen. Oh my God, we're down to QB3, and then we got another Josh Johnson situation. That's what I don't want. So I feel like having a QB3 that's a veteran, to me personally, gives me a little bit more peace of mind knowing, okay, if something, God forbid, happens to those other two guys, at least I know that, okay, Andy Dalton or Gardner Minshew could come in and might have a chance to win the game, like in that situation. So to me, maybe it's just the PTSD acting up because oh man, if we get to that situation again, Larry, I'm going to be crying.
Well, yeah, they can't get to that situation again. They can't lose another season because of quarterback play. And this one was really tough this year. CJ Gray says Trey is inaccurate. Brock has physical limitations. We are not in a good position. Wow. I kind of disagree. Pete says, I got to watch a game because of Raj on the gram. Are you sending people to games, Raj?
No, so I used to stream the games actually. I used to watch all so like part of my channel used to be I used to a lot of people couldn't watch the game. I remember when I used to live in Vegas, it was hard to catch the games if you didn't have a special, TV package. But now I live in the Bay. So for years I was streaming the game. So a lot of people watched the Niner games because of my Instagram. So
Damn, they're watching it on the gram, huh?
yeah, it was pretty dope doing it. But now I had to stop because of copyright and all that stuff. And
What's the
they
most
got
popular thing that you put up? Is it video? Is it how did the Cabo stuff do compared to like just random posts that you put up?
Cabo stuff was good because it's in the moment, and something new, and then the people like to see what the players are doing. So that stuff does good. Game day video highlights and the trash talk stuff that the players do, those are always good. I feel like whenever there's like memes of players when they're talking mess, if and keeping the receipts, when somebody doubts the 49ers and then the 49ers win and you get a little receipt of someone talking mess and they were wrong. That stuff is always good, And of course, breaking news, everybody's posting it, but it's the extra stuff like, let's say, I don't know, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was talking trash to the Niners. Let's say he got a touchdown thrown on him, and Deebo says, haha, look, I scored a touchdown. Like that right there, that whole interaction would probably be a top post. Like Micah Parsons, he did something silly. He said some stuff during the game, and then we reposted it after they lost, and that goes big. People like to laugh at the Cowboys and players that talk trash to the Niners.
One of the takes I shared with the radio audience today, and by the way, thank you, CWDT, become a YouTube member. I always give this guys a little clap. Thank you very much, sir, for being a YouTube member. But I was talking. One of my hot takes this morning was just that when I look at the story that I saw last night, that the Eagles are on the verge of paying Jalen Hurts $50 million a year. And then I look at the Niners and I look at the NFC and I'm looking at the entire landscape of the NFC with the Eagles having 12 free agents, 10 of them being starters, with them paying Jalen Hurts $50 million. There's a whole slew of free agents that they have that are not coming back. And I know they got a couple number ones, but outside of Philly, I think the 49ers may dominate the NFC. I mean, I would not be surprised if the 49ers are in that NFC championship game like 4 of the next 5 years. I don't see a team in the conference that I say, you know what? Watch out in 3 years for that team, or watch out, that team's coming. Like you see in the AFC with obviously Kansas City and Buffalo and Cincinnati to a lesser degree. They got teams that are like on the verge of being big time. I don't see it on the verge of big time in the NFC. Do you? Who's the best team in the NFC outside of Niners Eagles?
I mean, outside of those two teams, I agree with you. There's no like team that you're like, oh my God, this is an up-and-coming team. The only team that I can personally say that I can feel like they're kind of on the brink, maybe just being a perennial playoff team. I don't know if they're going to be a Super Bowl contender because I had this team being a very kind of upstart team was the Lions, but Jared Goff is going to be their limitation because he actually had a resurgence of a year. I was like, wow, okay, Jared Goff. But they put a lot of young players. Their offense is pretty nice. They got a lot of young receivers, good running back game. They got a good young defense. Hutchinson was a stud this year, and I liked him coming out of college. So I think, and Dan Campbell, I love Dan Campbell. I think he's really changed the culture there. I like the Lions, but I don't know if they're going to be like a premium contender. But I think that they're the only team that if I had to look at the NFC that I'm like, all right, this team's going to be there next year in the playoff hunt, I feel it's going to be the Lions. But they got to upgrade that Jared Goff situation. No disrespect to him. Again, he had probably a top 10 season in the NFL last year, quarterback-wise, maybe top 15. But, they do have to figure out who's going to be a franchise quarterback because I can't see Jared Goff taking them to a Super Bowl or NFC championship. But other than that, you're right. Like, the NFC is wide open. I think the Niners are going to continue to compete for the NFC championship game at least, as long as they keep the core group. Like the Cabo core, you got Deebo, you got CMC, Kittle, you got those guys. You're going to bring back Nick Bosa, you got Warner, you got Ayuk, who's on the cusp of superstardom. So I feel like as long as they got these core guys, they're going to be good for a long time. They just got to really figure out that quarterback situation.
Yeah, they got to make sure and keep that quarterback healthy, obviously. I'll say this. I was looking at some of the numbers today. Brock Purdy, when kept clean, has like a 128 quarterback rating. I mean, keep that guy clean. Go improve your offensive line. Do what you have to do to put 5 guys in front of him that can really block. If you can protect him, I think he's plenty good enough to win.
Yeah, I agree. He showed us. They went to the NFC Championship game last year with this rookie. He was a rookie, and that's what I think people forget. Like, oh yeah, Brock, maybe he's showing limitations or what. He was a rookie. Like I know Trey Lance is going to improve if he gets more development, but so is Brock Purdy. I could see this guy get better and better and better as he learns like the nuances of the game. And you're right, as long as they can keep him upright, he's going to dominate with this team that they have. And Kyle as the signal caller, we saw what this offense could do with Purdy and then CMC, and it was very nice. So as long as he comes back healthy and that elbow's stable, I think we're looking good. As they just got to keep him upright, because that Eagles offensive line showed us like that is the key to winning games. It's in the trenches, and then in the Super Bowl, flash forward the next week after the NFC Championship game, that Chiefs offensive line was beautiful, and that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that our quarterback can stay upright and starts in the trenches. We love Trent Williams. We know he's a beast. Aaron Banks is developing really well. Spencer Burford, really good rookie season, and he's going to continue to grow and develop as a player. But you got some holes there. You got center. Hopefully they can bring back Jake Brendel. I like what he did. I think he could get better. That right tackle is such a huge question mark. We don't know what they're going to do. And I think, again, Mike McGlinchey will price himself out. Somebody will overpay for him. But we don't have a right tackle at that point. So what are we going to do?
I mean, that's the thing. They have some in-house options, but I don't know that there's an in-house solution. You could go Caleb McGarry in free agency. You could try to bring in somebody stopgap, like a Tom Compton. You could spend the money to bring back McGlinchey, though I don't think they will. So, and then of course the draft. They don't have a first day. They don't have a day 1 or day 2 pick, or they have a day 2 pick, but they don't have a first or second round pick. And generally, most of the guys are first or second round players. And so it's going to be hard to figure out where can they find somebody. The kid from Northwestern, Skoronski, is a really nice player. Broderick Jones from Georgia, I think, is a blue chip player. But, are those guys even going to be around when the 49ers pick? There's a couple guards I really like. Torrance Osiris, or Osiris Torrance, I should say. Cody Mauch from North Dakota State. Jarrett Patterson from Notre Dame. Jackson Kirkland from Washington. All good players for sure. It's kind of a tough call. I don't know which. I haven't done enough looking at the draft to tell you who's good offensive line wise. But if you could find, they're going to probably need to find at least one big time offensive lineman, either a big time center or a big time right tackle. Somebody who can step in and just not about developmental, but I mean somebody who can play right away.
Yeah,
we'll see if they can find it. It's going to be a challenge to find that piece.
That's the thing, man. And we don't know because, like you said, Will, in the draft, is there someone that could come in right away on day 2? Because, again, they don't have a first, second round. Will they find someone that impact on the third round that could come right in? I don't know. And then there are free agent options. And then to me, sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe they will pay McGlinchey a lot of money to come back because there are no options better. And I know they're banking on some of the guys they have, like Colton McKivitz. I just haven't seen it out of him. I don't think he's the guy because, again, if you get to that big game and your O-line fails you again, then we're going to be back and having the same conversation next year. And we're going to say, what right tackle are we going to get? So this to me is the most important decision of the whole entire offseason. Not even the quarterback situation. It's who the heck is going to play right tackle? Because if you can't keep your quarterback upright, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback.
It's totally true. What do you think? What's your prediction? Is the NFL going to outlaw the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback push play, their short yardage play that was so effective? Or do you think, will teams copy it, or will the league outlaw it?
Oh, 100% teams will copy it. I mean, it's a copycat league. When you see something that's working, teams are going to adapt to it. But I think that the NFL is they're going to put some weird rule on where you can't have a certain leverage point and push, because I think they're going to say it's it's against the rules, or it's, too advantageous to a player and a team. And I think they're going to try to end it because it's not a traditional move. So I could see them getting away with it. But if they don't get rid of it, 100% teams are going to be copying this all the time because it was so effective. For the Philadelphia Eagles, and they did it all the time, and it was super effective. You just have a big group of guys, and you throw the guy ahead and you get a couple yards, 2-3 yards. So it was almost automatic. So yeah, if they don't get rid of it, 100% they're gonna copy it.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. I I think if you really think about it, it's a truly ugly play, right? Um, there's no skill involved. It's just mass bodies moving. And they don't blow the whistle to halt forward progress. They give you on this play, from the way I've seen it officiated, they give you your first push, and then if the defense pushes back, then they kind of give you a second push. And it's like if the whistle just blew as soon as forward progress was halted, I don't know that teams would try it. But if they're going to officiate it that way, where they're just going to allow you to kind of second effort, third effort, push across, I think somebody's going to go with that pretty consistently. I'll tell you the other thing that's really interesting to me is that what if teams can get 10 yards with this? What if all of a sudden teams are like, hey, I don't want our quarterback has thrown X number of picks in the second half of games. We don't like him doing that. So we're just going to run it in the second half. And then we're not going to pass it at all, basically. And we're just going to kind of dare teams to stop us. And if they can't stop us, we'll just keep running and running and running. I mean, it just seems like that. If any team went no huddle with that rugby scrum play, and then ran it on first down, and then get you on, your defense on the field with maybe some DBs and leave them out there, no huddle it, go second down, mush rush, third down. What if you could pick up 12 yards? Why would you ever do anything else?
Yeah, 100%. Why would you? Then it would definitely become rugby, and then I feel the league will be like, all right, we're not even playing football. But you're right. If they're going to allow it, and you can continue to take advantage of the rules, people are going to do it, and then that makes 100%. Like, what if you're the Jets? You have a terrible quarterback situation. I'm Salah. I'm saying, you know what? Just go and scrum it every play. Let's get a first down every play. It's better than what Zach Wilson was doing. So I could see a lot of teams saying, hey, we're just going to do this silly play, and they're going to be tired, and they can't stop us. Until they can stop us, we're not going to stop it. So that's why I think, because there are going to be teams that have that mentality where they're going to say, hey, look, if they can't stop it, we're just going to keep doing it. That's why I think the league will basically put it into it, or they're going to put some type of rule where you can't really do it like that, because it was so advantageous for the Eagles. And again, they have these big dudes, and they were literally throwing the guy. It's just like 5 yards, 6 yards. I was like, wow, that's crazy how it works. So I think they'll cut down on it.
I mean, if they don't, and somebody can no huddle that and drive the football up the field with just quarterback sneaks and that, I mean, that will be like new world order in the NFL. That would, nobody wants to see that at all. Kelvin Brown says, don't be surprised if Deebo Samuel was gone for a haul of draft picks. What do you think of that?
No
There was
chance,
a rumor
man.
this week that the Patriots wanted him. God knows he's attractive. Is he a foundation piece player and you just hang up the phone, or do you have a price for Deebo?
Nah, if they wanted to trade him, they could have done it last year. That rumor had no weight to it. Again, I think Deebo definitely is a big part of this team, big foundational piece, and he's a pillar. And again, he's a guy that really kind of gets the engine going on this offense. Now I know CMC came in and he kind of changed that, but I feel like Deebo really didn't get a fair share this year. I know a lot of people are kind of discrediting Deebo because he didn't have the big year, but he did. You got to remember, he was into a contract year last year. He was going through his offseason situation with the contract extension, so he didn't really do a lot of training on his own with the team because he wanted to make sure he didn't get hurt because he was about to sign a big contract and he was going through that. So I feel like this year he'll have a huge year because he'll be able to train more. He'll be able to do the stuff with the team, OTAs. He didn't do a lot of offseason training. Even in OTAs, you were there. You didn't see him. And in training camp, he wasn't there. He was in spandex shorts and a T-shirt and long sleeve and just hanging out, waiting to get his contract. And then they finally got it. Then all of a sudden, here comes Deebo. So I feel this year he'll be ready to roll and he'll have a different mindset. And I think also, too, I think he realizes, a lot of people doubted me. The injuries, popped up. I think he'll be back and better than ever this year. I think he'll be back to his form. And Kyle needs him in his offense. When Deebo's working at his best, this offense is at its best. We've seen it in the playoffs, at Dallas game. or no, the Seattle game, the touchdown he takes down off to the side. He's a big part of this offense, so I don't think they're going to trade him. I'm sure they would get a lot for him. I know Deebo's a big, a big commodity in the league. People would love to have him, but I think Deebo works best for Kyle's offense because I don't think another team would be able to scheme him up like Kyle does. Kyle drafted this guy with so many plans in mind. He scouted him from the Senior Bowl. Like, this was the guy he wanted from the day he saw him in the Senior Bowl. So I don't think a team, obviously he would come into another team and do well, but Kyle knows how to utilize him probably more than anybody. The only guy I could see get more out of him is probably Andy Reid in my mind. So I don't think anybody's going to trade for Deebo. And again, he was just in Cabo with Kyle this weekend. I'm sure he made sure that he told Kyle, make sure I get the ball this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Give me one offensive and defensive free agent. If I said to you, you can only sign one. You can only sign one free agent. You can only sign one offensive free agent. You can only sign one defensive free agent. Who do you want to sign on that offense? The offensive free agents are Daniel Brunskill, Mike McGlinchey, Jake Brendel, Tyler Croft, Jimmy Garoppolo, Josh Johnson, Ross Dwelly, Jordan Matthews. Do you want to re-sign any of your offensive free agents?
Yeah, give me Dan Brunskill. I like Dan Brunskill. He's a good quality lineman. You can line him up anywhere. He could start if you don't figure out something with anybody else. I like Brunskill. I think he's probably the best of the bunch. I'll take him back.
And what about defensive wise? Samson Ebukam, Amenahue, Ridgeway, Willis, Hyder, McGill, Mo Hurst, Aziz, Emmanuel Mosley, Tayshaun Gibson, Tarvarius Moore, Jimmy Ward. Who's the priority?
To me, and I love Jimmy, but I just don't think we're going to bring him back because money. Even if I could, I still want to go Emmanuel Mosley because I think this guy has a world of potential, and if he could stay healthy, that's a top corner duo. You got Ward and Mosley, so I'm gonna lean towards Mosley. I think you can find another safety. There's a lot of safeties out there this year that you can probably get. Although I do have a lot of love for Jimmy, but I feel like he's kind of ready for a clean slate, somewhere. But I'm taking Mosley and Dan Brunskill.
I'll go Jimmy Ward and Brunskill. I think Brunskill, you're right on Brunskill. He's versatile. He's a veteran. He can play anywhere. He's quality depth. Heck, there's teams that don't have 5 quality starters, let alone a guy like Brunskill who can, in a pinch, play almost any spot on the line. So I like Brunskill on offense. Jimmy Ward is the guy that I would bring back on defense just because I think he's a tone setter. Yeah. How about Clint Kubiak? The Kubiaks and the Shanahans go back 30 years. What do you think of Kyle hiring Clint as his top offensive assistant?
I like that. That was a good move. Again, Kyle, he loses people, but whenever he brings people back, there are always people, players and coaches alike, that are familiar with the system. So it makes that transition a little bit easier, because you do lose some coaches. Obviously D'Amico's going to take some guys, and I feel like that's going to continue to help make this team, get off to a good start because there is that continuity. The Kubiaks know the system that Kyle runs. Like you said, they have 30 years of experience together. So I feel like it was a good move. If you're going to lose a coach, replace him with someone that can come in and figure out the system or knows your system. So I think it was a good hire. And again, his brother's on the team. I think he's the assistant quarterbacks coach. So it's good. Keep it in the family. I think it's smart. They all know the system. And I think it's, again, my thing with this team is I feel like every year they get off to a slow start because they do lose coaches. It takes a little time to integrate that new coaching philosophy and get everybody on the same pace and chemistry-wise. But I think Kyle's learning, hey, if I'm going to lose some guys because have a hell of a team, we're going to have some turnover. Make sure I get guys that can come in and pick up the system pretty quick. And I want this team to start off fast and with a good record. If we start off 3-4 again, then you're playing catch up and maybe you won't get that 1 seed. So if we can start 5-2 opposed to 3-4, that's a big difference. So that's what I want out of this team, so they can get that the number 1 seed is going to be critical for us next year if we can get it.
No doubt. Because you don't want to go to Philly. You want that game at home. Kansas City and Philly had those games at home. They won those games. I think if the Niners had the championship game at home, they probably would have won. They've been on the road 2 years in a row for the championship game. And that means they're going to have to they may have to get business done in training camp and hit the ground running, and so you don't get, let up at all in the slightest at the beginning of the year. we get this one from Tua Lore. Larry, are you agreed to my comments? Let me see here. You did have a comment here. Let me see. Do I agree? Where's your comment? It's one thing. Sometimes you got to dig deep to get to people's comments.
I know. You got to go way back.
Well, I don't see it. I do agree, though. No, no, I have no idea if I agree. I'm pretty agreeable. How about he says scroll up? Let's see.
Repost the comment, my man.
And yeah, repost it for us if you could, and I'll get it the second time around here. All right. Give me the one. What is your favorite part of the off season? Do you like free agency? Do you like the draft? Do you like the lead up, from after the draft when you kind of know your team and the lead up to training camp? What is your favorite part of the off season?
Yeah, I'll name my top 3 in order. So I love free agency. I love free agency because it's just like that. It's so much news, so much stuff going together. You see all the teams signing players and people leaving, and it's just like, oh my God, it's like a week of madness, just like NBA free agency. I love free agency because you get this whole month of nothing. Because right now we're in this like weird, dry, nothing phase, and all of a sudden, boom, here comes free agency, and it makes everything. People are thinking about football again. So to me, that's number one. Number two is kind of like that draft combine, the draft season stuff. I love the combine, but I love the draft and seeing the stories of the new players and who are we getting? Who are the Niners getting? Oh, we drafted this guy, and then seeing all the celebrations like last year, Drake Jackson doing the flip into the pool. You're like, what the heck is this guy doing? And then seeing like the family members just like losing their mind on draft day, and then learning all these cool stories. So I like that. That's part two. And then training camp is I mean, that's when it's here, when you're like, boom, it's training camp, the season is pretty much upon us. So, and being there is so much fun, seeing all the players, seeing them getting their pads on for the first time, and you get to see the rookies in action a little bit. So to me, those are my top 3. But yeah, I love free agency because it's just like you go from no news to all of a sudden you're so bombarded and you're like, oh my God, here we go. So,
you know me, I love the draft. I'll go draft then free agency. Jay Dizzy says Tua Lore is saying fire Kyle Shanahan. Oh my God. I blame Grant for that. I'm going to talk to him later today. Yeah. Jay Dizzy says Tua Lowe is another brain dead moron who watches too much Grant Cowan. Come on. I got nothing against Grant. I'll be on with him at 5 o'clock today. Grant's a good guy. But, I where are you on the Kyle Shanahan thing? I mean, I would say Kyle Shanahan is, if you're optimistic, he's a top 5 NFL head coach. If you're pessimistic, he's a top 10 NFL head coach. If you're realistic, I would say probably top 7, maybe top 8. I'm satisfied with Kyle Shanahan as the coach. Could you do better? Maybe a little bit here, a little bit there. If you can get an Andy Reid, if you get the right guy in the right year. But I kind of look at Kyle and I see Andy Reid before he won the Super Bowl. And I'd rather keep Kyle here and be standing next to him in the winner's circle when he gets it done, as opposed to, chasing him out the door for Ken Dorsey, because Ken Dorsey is the hot name in the coordinator circles. I don't know. I don't see, to me, that's a risk. And I don't see why you would take a risk if you have a top 10 head coach.
100%. You don't and I've been around this team for many years. I didn't see Bill Walsh growing up. I was too young for that. I mean, I've obviously seen the videos and stuff, but growing up watching this team, I saw a lot of horrendous coaches. They got rid of Mariucci, and then after that, it was like bad coach Dennis Erickson, bad coach, after bad coach Tom Sula, after Harbaugh, and Chip Kelly. There's so many bad coaches, and Kyle, he's not a bad coach. People are mad because they can't win the Super Bowl, but they've been so close. You know how many teams would trade to be in the 49ers position every year? Like, yes, we don't finish the job, but they've gotten close 3 out of the last 4 years. NFC Championship game, they got to a Super Bowl 100%, like you said, just like Andy Reid when he was in Philly years ago. That's exactly what it was. He found a quarterback, and now he's good. People laughed at Andy Reid, and now they say he's a genius, So it takes time. Kyle's young. He's what, 40, 41? He's barely been a head coach, so it's going to take some time. For being a head coach for 6 seasons, the guy's had a pretty damn good track record. I'll take Kyle, and I've been critical of the guy. Not that I haven't. I've always sat here and be like, Kyle this and that. But over this last year, I really am impressed. I was like, man, this guy went through 3 quarterbacks, still got to the NFC Championship. And look at the roster they've had put together over the years. Like, you sit here and you see all the Pro Bowlers, all these special talented guys, all these coaches he's put together. Like, he's been a head coach for 6 years, and his coaching tree is already one of the most impressive in the NFL. So to sit here and say fire Kyle is silly to me. I get it. We all want a Super Bowl. We all say Kyle's a choker, whatever. He'll get it eventually one day. The talent is so amazing. When he took over this team in 2017, your wide receiver 1 was Lewis Murphy. Who? Come on, man. Like, Kyle has put together a phenomenal team. It's going to take time. I like Kyle. I know people have their thoughts on him. He gets people injured, whatever they want to say. But, hey, if they didn't have Kyle, I don't want to know what the alternative is right now. And, again, there are some OCs out there like Ken Dorsey. They're the hot names. But would they be able to win? We don't know. Kyle, we know that at least he can get to the NFC Championship game. One day he'll figure out how to get over the hump. It's just going to take time. But I like Kyle, man. Initially, I wasn't the biggest Kyle guy. I was like, I don't know if he could do it. But when you realize he's only been a head coach for 6 years and he's had a lot of success actually in that time, it's pretty impressive actually. So I think we're lucky to have a guy like Kyle.
I don't want to live in a world where Kyle Shanahan is not the Niners coach. No, I mean, that's over dramatic, but I mean, come on. I mean, you know how many people scoffed at me this summer when I said that Brock Purdy could play? Like everybody. And Kyle, so if you scoffed at me in July about when I said that Brock Purdy could play quarterback, then how do you get to the end of the season and say Kyle needs to go when he almost went to the Super Bowl with his 3rd quarterback?
Yeah, and everybody wants you to be the
That's the part that I'm just kind of like, you lose me. I get it. I mean, I'll listen to anybody. Make you want to get rid of Kyle, make your argument. I'll listen to you. But if it makes no sense, I'm telling you to your fucking face. It makes no sense. MF says, Danny asked Gabe Kapler a question in Scottsdale's media session in Giants Land, posted on Twitter. What was the question? What was the question? I'd love to know. Do you guys think you'll be good? That's a great question, Dan. John V says, Larry, you're growing this channel quite quickly, man. Love the content. It has been just shooting up lately. 14,000 plus subs. We just did that the other day. We're already at 14. We literally did 14,000 yesterday. Whew. And today we're at 14,300. So we're picking up like 250 subs a day. Which that might be the fastest of anybody right now. You might want to look that up. I'm not sure. Don't tell Grant if that's indeed the case, because I don't want him turning on me.
He'll cut you off the show. You're like,
he might cut me off.
Yeah.
He might cut me off and not ever live stream with me if I tell him my channel's growing at a faster rate.
Maybe I'll hop on with him instead of you. He'll get me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, he's Grant. I'm Raj. And yeah, there you go. We got this one. Bob Money. Imagine if Kyle has Zach Wilson. Oh my God. I think Kyle likes Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson is going to be a good player before it's all said and done. But I understand the people that would say, "Oh my God, it's been a train wreck." It has been a train wreck. He had an opportunity to take the blame. When the New York media throws blame in your direction, just take it. Just take it, because you're not going to win. You will not win. I know what he was thinking. He's thinking, I'm not going to give these guys anything because they're just going to go to town on me. But in reality, what they did was they asked him a basic question. They knew that he had not been playing well, and they asked him how he'd been playing, and he just kind of sidestepped it and was like, fine. They go, oh, you think you're playing fine? You've got you're the lowest rated quarterback in the league. You're obviously not a team guy. And, so the whole thing blew up, and then the team's wearing the backup quarterback T-shirts. And so maybe he needs to leave and go somewhere else. But I'll tell you right now, I know that Zach Wilson can play, and
Oh
it's going to
wow.
be he's going to be good before it's over. He may not be superstar good, but he's not that guy you saw last year. He's going to play better. So if you've decided in your mind that the guy we saw with the Jets last year is the best that Zach Wilson gets, I think you're going to be disappointed.
I
Because I
don't
think he's
know.
going to get better.
I
He was
mean,
terrible. Granted, he was terrible this last year, and he didn't handle the media well. And he, went from BYU where he was protected behind an awesome line to the Jets where he wasn't protected at all. So, but I think he can play, and I think unless he gets hurt, I think you're going to see him show that he can play. We'll see.
I don't know. Like you can't be
You're
worse.
skeptical.
You can't be worse than what he did last year. So I agree from a standpoint of, I mean, it was so bad. Obviously, he should be better than what he was last year. But to me, what he lacks is the mental game. And again, it's those media questions. I know he's young, but man, they were some of his media work. I was like, what? He didn't even take accountability. Like that's just quarterback 101 to me. Take the heat, take the blame. I think Salah is going to give him one more opportunity, and this kid's going to go out there and work his butt off because he is talented. He has talent, but I think it's in between the ears where he doesn't have what it takes to hit that next level. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's where I think his limitation is going to be. And we've seen with a lot of quarterbacks in this league, like a Ryan Leaf guy. This guy, he had talent, but he just didn't have it together in between the ears, and he flamed out. And I could see Zach Wilson being that type of guy. Like I think he has it, but he's not going to be able to put it all together. So I don't know. I think he is talented, and I agree with you, but I just don't think he has what it takes mentally to be that guy.
I think he has what it takes mentally, but I think Raj, what I'm seeing is that at BYU, he never played in what we would describe as kind of a muddy pocket.
Mm-hmm.
You could have parked a, Suburban between him and the pass rush at BYU. The NFL, you're never not throwing from a muddy pocket. You have to be able to throw with bodies around you. In a lot of ways, I kind of think that what we're seeing with Brock Purdy is what, the Jets thought they were getting with Zach Wilson. I mean, it's a guy who's, he's a little undersized, but man, he's really, really got a special playmaker gene. But, I mean, Purdy can operate in that muddy pocket and not feel the pressure. Zach Wilson, you can see it bothers him. It bothers him to have people around his legs, people around him. He's not used to it. There's a big adjustment period. So I would say let him get adjusted and then evaluate him. Raj K says, Larry, what do you think about the Niners trading Trey Lance and getting an O-lineman in the draft? I would not be in favor of trading Trey Lance, but I do think that you have to listen. I'd be deathly afraid to trade him. I think what Raj said earlier, I totally agree with, which is if you trade him, it's got to be a tremendous package. It can't be just like, hey, you got a second round pick and a backup offensive lineman. No. There's people. There's some people that think that his value has gone down since he entered the NFL. I don't know if that's actually the case because you got to remember this. These NFL people talk to each other, and Trey's a great kid who watches lots of film and works really hard and is very popular in the locker room. And yeah, he had an injury, but you're still talking about a guy who's got a lot of positive traits. I think in an era in a period where there's more demand for top quarterbacks than there are supply, I think people would be very, very surprised the kinds of things that may get offered to the 49ers for Trey Lance. All I'm saying is I think it's incumbent upon them to listen, but it better be a winning deal. You cannot trade that kid at a loss. You can't trade him for some mid package because he had just an okay first, couple of years in the league. If you move him, you better get something. It better not be a James Wiseman kind of a thing where you're getting back a 30-year-old, injured two guard who can't play the rest of the year. I mean, it better be multiple picks or a player and a high pick. It's got to be something significant that's going to make you a better football team because There'll be a price for trading Trey, and I think that there's a very good chance that Trey could have a monster career somewhere. So the last thing you want to do is be the team that gave up on Trey too soon.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Falcons with Brett Favre. You don't want to be that in that spot. That's how I see it.
I agree. You don't want to, because he has that potential, and if he reaches it and it's not on your team, you're going to look so bad for doing it. And again, if you are going to trade a guy that has potential, he's only been in the league this is his 3rd year, so he's still young. And you got to think about it this way. If you get Trey Lance and you're a team that needs a quarterback, is he going to be like, you got to think about it. Okay, we're in draft season. I'm looking at my draft board. Where would Trey Lance be on that draft board? And I think we talked about this. Would he be ahead of Bryce Young and, CJ Stroud in your draft board or not? So then you have to kind of think about it. Would he be a top 3 quarterback in this draft board? And if so, what would you do to get him? And that's where I think these teams have to look at. And then that's what the 49ers did a couple years ago. They saw Trey Lance as a top 3 quarterback prospect. And what did they do? They traded a lot of first-round picks, right, to move up. So that, to me, is what these other teams, that if they want Trey Lance, that's what they got to offer. A huge package to get a guy that is a top 3 potential NFL quarterback pick in the upcoming draft. So, and that's what the 49ers have to look at and say, hey, look, where would you slot him in your draft? Top 3? Okay, well, we gave up 3 first-round picks essentially to get him. What are you going to give us? So I think that's the way you got to play it. And you're right, you can't take anything less than that.
No, you got to get a big time offer, or you don't move them, because otherwise you're going to look bad. Clarsard 49 is kind of cute. He says, "Told my grandma to subscribe, Larry. 15,000 coming soon." All right, Grandma. What's up, Grandma? Twisted Clown. If Kyle is the guy, how long before Kyle starts to trade expensive old contracts to reset the roster? Will the Niners be the best team never to win a Super Bowl? Well, somebody earlier in the chat had a really direct question. It was like, how many, Krueger, obviously pro, Kyle Shanahan, how long do you give him? And I would say I don't have it's not like an endless amount of time. But I would say I'd definitely give him 3 more years to get this done, and see where it goes and see if I really think the next 3 years they're going to be in the NFC Championship game every year.
I think so too. I mean, again, it's this core group of guys. How many more years does this window do these guys have as a window to Super Bowl? And I think that's about 2 to 3 years. So with these guys, again, we have Bosa in his prime, Warner in his prime, Kittle and Ayuk and Deebo, and these guys. If you can't get a Super Bowl with these guys, then yeah, maybe we start evaluating things. But I think they still have a good couple of years. But as long as your team's winning, I mean, it's better than losing. I mean, look at the Steelers, man. They have Mike Tomlin. He's been on that team for what? I don't know how many, almost 2 decades, and they always have a winning record. So I mean, at least they're competing. So Kyle at least has given us a competitive team. If it gets to that point, then you got to have to reevaluate. So would you rather have a coach that's going to at least give you a winning season, or do you want him to finally get over the hump? And I think, of course, teams want to see that team win a Super Bowl, but it's been close. And I think you're right. I think a 3-year window is a good assessment point, because I think we're close, man. I really do.
CWDT, my 95-year-old grandma told me the San Francisco Giants are too old. That's awesome. Bomber T. CJ Gray, he's talking to another guy in the chat. He says, I like Michael Penix Jr. Out of UW, young quarterbacks coming up, and Caleb. Is it Caleb Williams, right, for SC? Yeah. Have you seen Michael Penix Jr. for Washington throw? He has got an absolute howitzer.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an absolute gun. I don't know if he can play quarterback, but man, that guy can really, really throw it. Not a lot of news today in Ninerland, so we're going to cut it short. We're almost an hour and a half into this, so we'll let Raj get on with his day. Raj, what do you got cooking this week? What are you working on? What are you putting out there? If people haven't checked you out on Instagram, do it. If you haven't subscribed to Raj's YouTube channel, do that as well. Tell people where they can find you and what you got cooking this week.
Yeah, so RSF 49ers on all platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. Honestly, there's not much going on. I like sometimes to take a little break because, again, in a couple of weeks, you're going to have a lot of free agency news. and then you get so busy. So I'm just gonna embrace this little downtime. I'm gonna go live like I usually do. If there's any news out there, I'll post it. But honestly, these last few days I've been kind of staying low key. But yeah, I'll post some stuff here. We'll probably do some free agency posts, and things like that. But there's not a whole lot going on, so I don't want to just force posts out there. It's nice to get some breaks because social media really takes its toll on you mentally. So as I've done this over the last couple of years, I realize you need a little bit of time to kind of stay back, from the social media game for a few days. So I mean, I'll be posting. I'll try to keep my content because you can't just do nothing because then people are like, all right, this guy's not posting anything. So
Right.
you
got
got
to keep it going, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you don't want to just put a bunch of crap out
Yeah,
there,
I don't want
right?
to put because I mean I have some ideas, but I was like, a lot of it's just like old content. Because I see a lot of people they'll just like recycle content from last year. I'm like, you know what? I've done it every year. At some point, it gets old, so you take a little break and take care of yourself. And then when you get a good idea, you throw it out there every once in a while. So
Yeah. No,
that's it.
absolutely. All right, brother. Have a great rest of your Monday. We'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate you, man. Take care, Larry. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Next Monday, the great Raj in the house from RSF 49ers. He does a great job. Absolutely follow Raj. Check out what he's got. He's fantastic. We got this one's kind of interesting too. Jim Thurkill says, Larry, do you think Kyle losing a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl had a bad impact on him that we don't see? That's a great question, really. That is a great question. I don't know that you ever get over losing a Super Bowl, period. And he's lost two. One as an offensive coordinator and one as a head coach. I don't know which. That would be a great one to ask Kyle when the cameras aren't on. Which career loss haunts you the most? It may be this game in Philly. I mean, he said going into that game that he felt like this was the best chance that the Niners had to win the Super Bowl this year. I think that's really, really interesting too, because it tells you that either that's to me, that's a comment about either the dominance of the Niner D or the way Brock Purdy sees the field. But I kind of read it as one or the other. He's either saying that this is the best defense he ever had, which I don't know if that's the case or not, or I actually would say probably not. Because I think DJ Jones was really effective. They missed DJ Jones in the worst way. I mean, they got a gigantic hole in the middle of their defensive line, and they've got some key free agents on the back end. Like if you told me that they couldn't find a replacement for Kinlaw and they lost Mosley and they lost Jimmy Ward, this defense takes a noticeable step backwards because you've also lost the coordinator. And I think it's most people's foregone conclusion that they're going to lose Aziz Al-Shair. So that's they're in kind of a interesting spot. But I think when Kyle said that he felt like this was the best, chance they had, I think that's more about Purdy. I think the fact of the matter is he didn't have a lot of confidence in Jimmy. He's got more confidence in Purdy. Purdy sees the field better. And so he felt like his opportunity to win this year was better than it's been in past years. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the 49ers are in a great spot because look at the NFC and look at the Eagles and look at Hurts's cap number. And the Niners have two rookie quarterbacks and they don't have a ton of needs. And I think they've managed their cap pretty well up to this point. So I think they're in a really, really good spot. I think the 49ers are almost guaranteed to be one of the best teams in the NFC, at least, for the next 3 to 5 years. I don't see anybody running with them in the conference. And I dare anybody to find one. I mean, maybe Philly, maybe. And I don't know that there's a third team. I don't believe in Dallas. Detroit, that's a projection. Seattle, that's a projection. I mean, there's some teams that you could project having bounce back years. Are the New York Giants going to improve as much from this year to next year as they did from last year to this year? If so, maybe they're that third team. I don't know. There's no easy, hey, you know what? Absolutely watch out for this team in the NFC. They're going to run with the Niners. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to say that it's a wide open conference and there's a bunch of teams that have a chance. I don't think I believe that. I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC, and will continue to be the best team in the NFC. MF's thoughts on the Rams. I think the Rams may trade Ramsey. Donald may retire. Stafford's at the end. Cup's pretty young, but I mean, you take away Stafford and Donald and Ramsey. I don't, to me, there needs to be a whole cleansing there. Now, Sean McVay's a hell of a coach. Les needs a really good GM. They need to build up their offensive line. They need to do a number of things to their roster. But the Rams might be a team because they'll be aggressive. That's one thing we do know. They'll trade their draft picks. They'll go for veterans. They'll be hyper aggressive on players they want, and they'll fill in with quality depth pieces with day 3 picks. So, that's interesting. But even them, I mean, they look like a team that's going to get worse before they get better. And so, if you look at their cap situation, it's hard to look at them and say, yeah, they're the team that's going to run with the Niners and the Eagles in the NFC going forward. So we'll see. I personally, I think the Niners are in a very, very good spot. And if they have a good off season this year, they're in even a better spot than I think, as far as competing to go back to the Super Bowl. Now, once you get there, somebody's going to have to beat Mahomes. Somebody's going to have to knock off Josh Allen or Herbert or one of these awesome AFC quarterbacks. So there's always that kind of dangling out there. But, I mean, as far as going to the Super Bowl, I could see the 49ers go to the Super Bowl quite a bit in the next, 4 to 5 years, because I think the way it's kind of set up for them to do exactly that. All right. Let's tell you a little bit about our sponsor. We are brought to you by Pig in a Pickle. Check them out. pigandapickle.com. They got 2 locations. They're at 341 Corte Madera Town Center in Corte Madera. They're also in the Emeryville Public Marketplace. They're open in Emeryville Wednesday through Sunday. In Marin County, they are open 7 days a week, and they're open from 11 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. in the evening. Try the brisket, the pulled pork, the brisket chili, all amazing. The potato chips are second to none. Damon and Mary, they work at it. They got a great restaurant, Pig in a Pickle. Check them out, Emeryville and Corte Madera. If you're in Northern California and you want great barbecue, and I know you do, check out Pig in a Pickle. And here's a little video from Pig in a Pickle.
And thanks to Tony Casera and the good people at Casera's Italian Menswear. They are housing the Krug Show t-shirts, and they're a proud sponsor of the show as well. The Krug Show t-shirt, the Krug Show podcast t-shirt is available there at their store in Dublin. Their address is 7372 San Ramon Road in Dublin, California. And go see Tony Casera and get yourself a Krug Show t-shirt and support the show. And special thanks to our sponsor, New York Style Italian Sausage. That's right, NewYorkStyleSausage.com is their website. Phenomenal product, whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, the chorizo. You cannot go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage. Once again, NewYorkStyleSausage.com, often imitated, never equaled. And they are a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to them as well.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, we're coming down the stretch on the Krug Show. Thanks to everybody in the chat. And we have, God, man, we're really cruising as far as amount of people that have subbed in the last month or so. Really impressive number of people have subbed, like close to 3,000. We're now at 14,347, and we got to 14,000 last night. Or yesterday, or was it 2 days ago, and now we're at 14,347. So obviously the channel's growing by leaps and bounds, thanks to Len Dempsey and my son and all the people that are involved with growing the channel. But if you're in the live stream right now and you're one of the couple hundred people that are still in the room, if you've yet to subscribe, hit like. That always helps the algorithm. Hit subscribe. That will just alert you every time we go live. And we had a couple people join up to be channel members today. If you want to be a channel member, it's $4.99 a month. And we bring some unique individual content to our channel members. We're hoping to have great things to report here in the month of March, just around the corner. Hopefully some awesome baseball stuff around the corner that we can tell you that we're doing. CJ says Larry is awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. CJ 49er Josh faithful forever says, "Grats, Krug. You deserve it, sir." Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, thanks to everybody in the chat. And now, as far as the rest of today, what do we got going on the rest of today? So we had Raj stop by from our SF 49ers, and Raj does an incredible job. I don't know if you've checked out Raj's channel, but if you haven't, you should. As far as what do we have in the rest of the week on the Krug Show? So tonight, excuse me, at 5:00, I will be going on Grant Cohn's channel. So I'll join him on the Cohn Zone at 5:00 tonight. And then tomorrow, Vish, I'll be on Vish's channel. We'll talk little Niners tomorrow with Vish. And then on Thursday on the channel, we're going to be, Vish will stop by on our channel. We're hoping Grant maybe can stop by on Wednesday. And then on Friday, you can check me out. I'll be back on the radio, sitting in for Damon Bruce on 95.7 The Game from 3 until 6 p.m. on Friday with the great Ray Ratto. So hope everybody's enjoying the great day. I had one in here that I wanted to get to. I think MF. Oh, here we go. MF says, does spring training performance matter in baseball? Absolutely does not matter in baseball. Now, I used to think it kind of mattered, but then I've seen too many examples of a guy who has a terrible spring have a great season, or a guy who has an awesome spring just be in a funk that almost needs to be farmed out by the middle of the year. So MF, I'll be on the side of it means nothing. Everything that you see in Arizona means nothing. The air is light, the ball sails. Pitchers have a hard time getting a grip on their breaking stuff. There are guys that just get teed in the Cactus League, and then opening day starts, and they're one of the better starters in the National League. I've seen it way too many times. So, no, spring training means jack. It absolutely means nothing. It's fun. And there's no question that it's like enjoyable to watch. And like, you can see things that do matter. Like, if a guy's in great shape, that will come out in spring for sure. And so, yeah, I mean, I think what you're seeing as far as their conditioning matters, but as far as their results, doesn't matter. Absolutely doesn't matter. Bomber T says, you're the man, Larry. Color TV says, thank you, Larry. CWDT says, Danny should have asked if Gabe Kapler is going to give first base a try this year. They seem to be throwing anyone over there. Val Ramos says, the Krug show is fire. We got this one from GKF. Larry's awesome. Thank you. Todd Labor. Good day, Larry. Jay Nubbs with the very fire. Bomber T says, I'll sub to Grant just for that show. LOL. Yeah, check it out. 5:00 tonight. We usually go at 3, but today we're pushing it back to 5. I think Grant's been traveling. Bomber T says he's not a big fan of Grant. Doesn't matter, man. Grant, let me just say this. Grant's a good dude. And there's a lot of people out there that don't like him, but don't fall for the polarizing persona is just that, I think. I mean, I'll say this. I think there's a lot of people in here who know that I get a pretty good feeling on people's character. If the guy didn't have high character, I wouldn't have him on my channel. And I wouldn't go on his channel. So don't fall for the polarizing exterior. And just know that, I get it. Everybody's different. I don't handle my channel the same way he handles his, but I got nothing but respect for the guy. I'll say this. He's helped me immensely. And, I got, as far as I'm concerned, I'm cool with Grant. I like Grant. And lots of people do here, Noodles and others. We got this one, the young Montana. Grant is a goat. So there you go. So check us out, 5:00 tonight, talking all things Niners. And hopefully there'll be, a number of interesting topics to get into, within the next couple hours. Hopefully 5 different stories break in Ninerland, and we break them all down, all in the next couple hours. Probably not going to happen, but check us out at 5:00. And until then, we're out. Have a great Monday. And if you haven't subscribed to the Krug Show, do it now. And we appreciate you. Have a great day.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one.